welcome everybody to this webinar today with the one and only Luke Kempen, who will introduce himself shortly and sort of explain a little bit about why he's here with us today. It's kind of exciting. First, like little update. I don't know if everybody knows, but we have an event and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be in Barcelona, end of April, 25th, 26th. You want to be there. It's going to be really cool. I'm really excited about it. And there's going to be a lot of enterprise focus. And the topic that we're talking about today um, is very related to that as well. Because, I think you're going to find a lot of events currently that are saying, like, this new technology is here and this is what you can do. And if you can dream up all these use cases. But, there's not a lot of focus on, is that a good use case? Should we be doing this? Does it make sense to invest this money? What are some of the risks that we might be looking at? So for that, you need to answer those questions, you need people like Luke, who's been with us for, how long have you been with us for now, Luke? Let's
We're getting close to a year, probably 9, maybe 10 months now.
10 months. And Luke is based out of the office that we have in Austin. So I am currently in Amsterdam. Luke is in Austin. So I think this is the first time we have a webinar where the both offices are on stage together. That's this is a historic moment. So that's also an important one. So today we are going to talk about how to craft a business case. Zoom in on that, because like I said, there's a lot of focus on building stuff. There's a lot of focus on technologies, but when should you be doing what? I think that's kind of like the key thing. So maybe, look, you can kind of take some time and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about, your experience in the field of conversational AI and kind of what, insights you can offer people here today when it comes to these business cases.
Thanks, Hans. Firstly, thank you everyone for joining. It's really great to see 116 people joining to listen to a topic about business cases. Maybe not the most sexy topic, but it's really important, and I actually find it really, really interesting. So maybe after this session, some of you will also find it interesting. A bit of a quick introduction about myself. My name is Luke Kempen. I am the Conversational AI Practice Lead at Conversation Design Institute's Services Arm. I'm based in Austin, Texas. You can probably tell by my accent that I'm not from the United States. I'm Australian, and I grew up and spent most of my life in Melbourne, Australia, but I have recently, around 9 months ago, moved over here to Austin, Texas. I've been in conversational AI, specifically consulting and delivery, to enterprise for over 8 years now. I kind of fell into it a little bit by accident. I studied engineering at university, but fell into conversational AI when I started in consulting, and it all just sort of snowballed from there. And I now solution, set up and lead the implementation of complex conversational AI solutions to our customers. Over the past 8 years, sorry, go ahead, Hans.
No, you continue. Go for it.
Yeah, over the past 8 years, I've seen many instances where conversational AI programs don't quite meet the expectations that were set from the beginning. And I also see that there's a lot of effort that is wasted going after things that may not deliver the value that's required. So what I've been trying to do is to embed value-driven decision-making from the outset at the investment and sales stage through to program planning, all the way through implementation, and even at the optimization stage once you have a conversational AI solution live in production. To that extent, I've developed assets to calculate business cases specifically for conversational AI programs, and also methodologies and processes to evaluate the initiatives or use cases that would form up that business case. A little perhaps anecdote of maybe how I got into doing business cases. I was working at a utility company many years ago, and they were looking at an entire contact center replatforming and using that as a vehicle to deliver conversational AI and automation to their customers. And they were working on this business case that had to go up to the board and to the CEO for approval. And I just started helping them out. I'm like, this is how you can, calculate a business case for conversational AI. And I became so embedded in the team that when their value lead, the person who was running the business case, suddenly left the organization, they handed over responsibility to develop the entire business case to me, an external consultant. So that went up to the board and the CEO for approval, and it got approved. It was, a mammoth document. And yeah, it was approved. I couldn't tell you what happened next because I went on to another project, but that's the nature of consulting. Sometimes you don't get to see everything through. But yeah, Hans, that's, the kind of experience I have in conversational AI and specifically business cases.
Yeah, and that is great experience because I think it is often the experience that is lacking in a lot of these projects because engineers come up with a solution, they start building it, and business isn't always involved or doesn't even know how to ask the right questions. So when you look at sort of that from the business perspective overall, and I think a lot of people in the audience will notice, but what kind of benefits generally, if you speak from the business case mindset, how would you then describe sort of the benefits from both the business perspective and the customer experience as well? And before you answer that, I will also tell everybody, by the way, it's like questions, please just, I don't think we got the chat to work, but just put them in the Q&A, and sometimes it makes sense for us to answer stuff on the spot, or otherwise we keep them to the end. But just whatever's on your mind, just put it in the chat or put it in the Q&A, and we make sure that it gets addressed as well. So yeah, the benefits from your perspective, how do you describe those?
Yeah, I think to begin, perhaps zooming out at kind of a macro level on this quickly, we are basically relearning the way that we interact with machines, human-machine interaction. I think, many years ago in technology terms, but perhaps not so long ago in lifetime terms, we were interacting with search engines using keywords and Boolean expressions. We were adapting to the machine language. And now it's developed in a way that we're asking questions in natural language. So search became more natural language focused. And around the mid-2010s, we had the voice assistants come out, and it started to become much more natural to ask Siri and Alexa and co questions in natural language, because that's the way that it worked best. So we are overcoming that hurdle that once existed, where sometimes you release a chatbot, for example, and your customers would just type a keyword at it and expect to get the answer. So that's really exciting that we're now able to interact with machines in a more natural way. But in terms of the benefits, specifically, there are clearly many types of conversational AI applications, and for this discussion we might focus a bit more on the customer-facing chatbot, voicebot type of solution, but I think it applies to many others as well. But the best conversational AI solutions are ones that are available 24/7, 365. They can scale at a rate that humans just cannot. They are an alignment and a proponent of your brand, and they can solve the simple stuff quickly. And for those very complex edge case type scenarios, that's when you can bring the human in the loop. And I think it's a combination of all of those things. That's what customers like. I'm sure everyone on here has had a bad experience with a chatbot or a voice bot. We've all gone through it, I think. But in my opinion, people don't hate chatbots or voice bots. They hate the bad ones. And so I think it's incumbent on all of us to kind of break that perception and create ones that, reduce customer effort, allow people's problems to be solved, within minutes. So they don't have to wait on the phone in a queue. They don't have to chat to someone who's chatting to 5 other people at the same time, and have to close the app, wait 10 minutes to get a response in asynchronous messaging and come back. And there's times when I've been doing that, I've just forgotten, and I've tried to solve the same, like changing my address or something for my bank, and I've started the conversation like 3 times, and life gets in the way, and weeks later I still haven't solved it. So I think there's huge benefits for customers interacting with conversational AI solutions if the customer experience is strong. From an organization perspective, there are obviously cost savings and time savings that you can achieve through conversational AI. But Hans, there are also, many more benefits that may seem that are harder to calculate, maybe a bit more intangible, but it's an opportunity to gather lots and lots of data. It allows you to know your customer better than ever before. You can then use that data perhaps to do predictive analytics and use data science and machine learning to understand when your customers may be at risk of churn, as an example. So there's a lot of things that you can do in this space.
Which then becomes part that you should consider when you're building a business case, I imagine, as well. It's like, what are the benefits, and what does that look like? And back to what you said about the evolution of chatbot and conversational AI. This morning I read that Siri is actually having a birthday. I think it's like 12 years old now, Siri, and it's really impressive because you used to have to say, "Hey Siri," and now you can just say Siri and call it. So there's a lot of innovation there too in all those years. But going back to the business case, why is it a crucial element in planning and executing the conversational AI projects within an organization? Because I think a lot of people are doing like back of the napkin business cases. Oh, this makes sense. Let's go. But talk us through this of why is it so important in the whole planning stage, and talk us through it.
Yeah, I think simply a business case is, in a word, a justification. It's a justification for an investment in a program or an initiative. And to really like to come up with an analogy for it, it's like, is the juice worth the squeeze? So I like to use a bit of acid in my cooking, to bring out the flavor. So, I have one of those lemon plastic things where you juice it. So is it worth me, who maybe juices a lemon a week for my cook, or 2 lemons a week for my cook, is it worth it me buying like a machine to do that task for me? Is the investment in that machine worth the time saving that I would get? The answer, I think, in this scenario is pretty simple. Probably not. It's overkill, right? And that really applies to conversational AI programs. It's an analysis of the current state of operations and an assessment of what the future could be. And from that, you're producing a cost-benefit analysis. And the output of a business case really is a number of financial metrics based on cost-benefit analysis. So you get a bunch of metrics, and I won't bore you with the details of all of them, but things like return on investment, the internal rate of return, net present value, payback period, they're all metrics that demonstrate how quickly, or the rate at which, and how much you make from your investment. But conversational AI programs may be a little bit different. You may want to invest in the future, and so the payback period for a conversational AI program, you may tolerate a longer payback period for that initiative. But I think a business case really, I like to think of it as almost the program nucleus. It takes inputs from very important documents and decisions that an organization has and informs many others. So a business case is very strongly connected to your vision and your strategy. It needs to align very closely to those. The business case actually will almost inform and create your roadmap, what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it. Also, how you measure success is fundamental to a business case. Like, to calculate the benefits, you need to know what does success look like to you. And building off from that, the business case also is tied very closely to your reporting and analytics. And you also need a really good understanding of the people that you have, the processes you use, and the technology at your disposal. So a business case is a culmination of all of the knowledge and understanding you have about your business, your people, and your capabilities in one thing. And I think it can highlight and demonstrate just how well you know what you're doing, and highlight perhaps gaps that you're missing. And that's a really good thing, because then you get a lot more transparency, you get a lot more accurate with your estimating, and then you're more likely to achieve what you set out to achieve. Or you'll have a sobering assessment and realize maybe we're not quite going to meet what we initially set out to do. So in summary there, Hans, I think good business case often equals good program.
Yeah, because I can definitely tell, like, the projects are always much bigger than they seem. Like, you're opening up a channel, like you always say, there's a lot of people involved, people that you might not immediately consider. So I guess it's very easy to overlook certain things and make a mistake. So being very thorough in this beginning of a project, building a good business case is just going to paint a better picture, so you don't have surprises in the future as well. So it's more than just a go or a no go on a project. It's actually understanding the context from which this project emerges. So in which, like, can you discuss some of the specific scenarios or circumstances that should consider when developing a business case? Like,
yeah, of course. In my experience, there are two main scenarios where a business case is utilized. And the first one is in the investment or the sales stage. So this is that moment where you're trying to justify the investment in the conversational AI program. And the second is in the project planning stage. So you've decided to invest, and now you may want to create a more detailed business case that's going to be used throughout, the entire program lifecycle. And I'll explain the differences in the two briefly. So the first kind, that investment or sales stage business case, is going to be much more high level. And sometimes it's a back of the envelope calculation, but I would encourage organizations to go a little bit deeper. So for that, you need to understand your current state. You need to know what kind of volumes that you have that you expect could go through your conversational AI solution. You need to know what your cost to serve is. But you'll probably be making a lot of assumptions. You won't know exactly all of the use cases or the intents that you may be delivering. So you may make some assumptions like, okay, we've got 5 million expected conversations coming through a year. We think in the first year we might be able to, automate 20%. And then what your cost to serve is, what the cost to build is. And so from there you can do the cost benefit analysis and create a business case. Obviously that's very high level. You're making a lot of assumptions. And many times organizations get kind of caught in the trap of, we need to make the business case look good to justify the investment. And as someone who more often than not comes in after this one is created, it can be difficult to manage and meet those expectations that are often extremely unrealistic. And so that's why the second kind of the second scenario is so important. You've started a project, and now you want to understand what is it we should be doing first. And so the more detailed business case in the project planning stage will go to, the next level of detail. You'll try and remove as many assumptions as you can. And you won't just look at 5 million conversations and say, oh, maybe 20%. You'll start to break down those 5 million conversations. 10% are around customers want to update their account details. 5% is they want to know the status of their order. And so you get a breakdown of all the call or chat reasons that customers are interacting with you. And you look at each of those and you evaluate and prioritize them. And I think we'll talk a little bit more detail about that later. But by evaluating and prioritizing them, you can estimate what you think you could automate, not on the entirety, but on each specific one. And so you get into a far more granular level of detail, and that's going to produce a far better estimate. And you can return and revisit those throughout the project lifecycle to implement a feedback loop into your business case. And so you're doing it more accurate every time. I was working on one project, and the initial business case basically said, we're migrating from one platform to another, and the migration is going to use a far better natural language understanding model. And that natural language understanding model, just by being awesome, is going to improve automation by 10%. And that was the framing of the business case that I walked into. And, many of us who know about, chatbots and voice bots would know that natural language understanding isn't everything. It helps you get good volume through your conversational AI, but it is not always the answer to containment or automation. You need to use good conversation design, conversation handling and repair, and you also need the technical capability like APIs and data and automation to actually solve the customer's problem. So simply saying a new natural language understanding model is going to improve your automation by 10% is a little hard to believe. So that's when the detailed business case became so important, because we needed to demonstrate not only that that's not the answer to achieving success, but we had to show how we could get there. And that's by looking at the specific use cases we had that we could do and finding the ones that were going to give the best value to us. So yeah, Hans, I think both of them are important, but I would encourage organizations to not skip on the detailed business case. Don't just archive the high-level business case and move on. Invest in the detailed one, continue to use it and reflect on it.
Yeah, because I like that, because a lot of times we have a system deployed, and we're very proud and happy that we gather all this data, and then but sometimes we just gather it, then better teams look at it to make the bot better. So then you got to already understand more, because the data might tell you, oh, we need functionality, or it's a design problem, or we need to train the models better. So it informs sort of the problem seeking, but it doesn't. You need to be very advanced to have that feedback back into that business case, because usually that's long gone already. But it helps, keep focusing on that North Star in a way, in a very smart, clever way, without breaking the bank and making wise decisions. So a lot of times, like, oh, we're gathering information, it's great, but that needs to turn into insight, and that insight usually stays with design or AI training rather than actually feeding back into the business case each cycle. So that's actually kind of neat what you're saying there. And then so one are the key considerations that I want to keep in mind while I'm creating that business case. So shares a little more. Let me see if we have a bunch of questions. I think, yeah, maybe I'll ask you this real quick because a lot of people are interested. Do the sort of a similar, like a template almost, like what are the things that need to be included? We don't have that here, but I think maybe there's something that we can send afterwards to people as well to sort of like make sure that you have some of these. Then we, of course, aren't going to give you all the details of the stuff that CDI looks at when we work with our clients, but there's definitely a few things that you might be overlooking that would be good for you to include as well. I think the other ones we'll do afterwards. And I've noticed that the chat is open as well. People, everybody just send in your questions and we'll address them all. So yeah, the key considerations that we should be keeping in mind while we're developing one.
Yeah, I think first and foremost is, what does success look like? What does success look like? And for different organizations, that's different things. And so it might be, and for many organizations, it's, we need to cut down our costs. And that's just the reality sometimes. For others, it's, we want to have the best customer experience, CSAT, NPS score that we can possibly achieve. But some of those metrics in particular often can be in conflict with each other. So you need a really good understanding of what success looks like to you specifically, so you can craft a business case around those metrics. And I've seen a lot of times where programs rush into delivery and they haven't even thought about success. They haven't even defined what their success metrics are. And an example that probably everyone here may be familiar with is, what is containment rate? I think containment rate is a metric that we all talk about, but in my experience, nobody has ever calculated containment rate correctly. I think containment rate is, a customer comes to you and asks a specific thing. They want to know the status of their order, as an example. Stuff happens in, say, the chatbot. It looks like it was successful. But then the critical thing is, they do not return to interact with your company in any other channel about the same thing. Now, to calculate that requires multi-channel analytics and to observe customer interactions over like, 2 days, 1 day, something like that. So that's a level of capability that most organizations can't quite achieve. And so they measure, typically I've seen organizations measure containment as they weren't handed over to a human.
Yeah.
But any number of things could have happened. They could have been fighting with the chatbot or the voice bot and just given up and gone, oh, I can't be bothered with this, I'm leaving. That would be counted as contained. So whatever definition you choose for your metrics and how you calculate it, you need to understand the pros and cons of that measurement. And some measurements you need to take with a grain of salt. And so sometimes you need to bring in other metrics to support and add context to, as an example, the containment rate. Another consideration, I think, for conversational AI programs is that business cases is always about the justification. Is this worth it? But there are long-term benefits to adopting these technologies that the benefits don't become readily apparent, even in maybe a 2 to 3 year time frame. And it lays the foundation for a lot of work in artificial intelligence moving forward. And so that's a storytelling exercise. That's asking the question, is the vision and strategy of our organization to invest in conversational AI and artificial intelligence because we believe that this is the future of, in this case, customer interaction? If that's the case, then you may have to be okay with not having return on investment that's amazing or at the level that other initiatives or programs might achieve. And I think that's a better conversation to have than setting unrealistic expectations that the program never meets. Other considerations, I think, are what are the sensitivities to your business case? Because this is an estimation. You're never going to get it right. You kind of just hope that you can get close by making the right assumptions, using the right data, and implementing a feedback loop into your business case to refine it over time. But your sensitivities would be things like your cost side. So you may apply contingency to the cost of the program. That's quite typical. Programs sometimes run over budget. So you need to look at the effect that cost overrun or the inclusion of contingency will have on your return on investment. The other is adjusting the benefits. So it's helpful to look at, okay, we think we can achieve X benefits, but what if we achieve 20% less or we achieve 20% more? So having a look at these scenarios and saying, in the situations where we might underperform, what does the business case look like? I think that's really important as well, because it is just an estimation at the end of the day, Hans.
You've got your bull case, you've got your bear case around this project, and then I think it's also like
and the Goldilocks case in the middle, just right.
Yeah. Just right. Yeah, because I think it's quite easy to inflate the softer sides of it. When you look at AI, it's like, oh, AI is on the rise. Are we going to use AI eventually to talk to people? Yes. So the learning component of just getting started, it's very easy to inflate that as an organization. It's the same as justifying going to a conference as a business. Well, we'll go to a conference, we'll meet some people. You always meet a bunch of people, but it's very difficult to calculate some of those things. And if I go through that process, and there's a lot of response, by the way, on the containment piece that you were talking about, we can follow up on that later, where everybody's struggling with that. For a lot of people, it's like, oh, we'll focus on containment, and we just move the goalpost and keep the conversation, make the conversation shorter. So what's that process then of actually calculating and formulating it? Like, what are the steps? And because it sounds like a lot of work now all of a sudden, where it used to be like, oh, we do the business case and then the work starts. Now it's starting to sound like there's a lot of work before we even get a go or a no-go on a project.
Yeah, this topic could cover another hour, maybe another 2 or 3 hours. And yeah, it takes a little bit of effort, but it's absolutely worth it. That's the reason why I've developed these kinds of assets, is because often you spend just as much time creating the template and the structure and the way to calculate the business case. Then you put in less effort into the quality of the data and inputs you're gathering. But if you have that structure and template from the beginning, that makes it really easy to build it. Then you can invest most of your time into making it as good as possible. So I think the prerequisites for doing your business case is you need to know what your strategy is and your vision at your program level, but also at your organization level. So it should be organization, I guess, department, and then program, and it should all make sense. It should all be in alignment. For the detailed business case, you're going to need that high level, more back of the envelope business case to get started as a starting point. And you need to know what your definition of success is and how you're going to measure it. Once you've done that, that may take some time. You need to really understand your current state. And so obviously that's collecting data. So what are the volumes? Do we have transcripts of customers talking to human agents that we can look at and learn from? Do we know the breakdown of the reasons why customers are talking to us? Do we know that 10% want an account update and 5% want to get the status of their order. You need that information to do the detailed one. You also need to understand your service model for the current state. What does it cost to serve your customers? And so those will be metrics like average handling time, cost per second of your agents, and to get to those numbers, you may need to know the utilization and the shrinkage and the hours per week of your contact center. And so you need to gather all of those inputs to really understand the current state. So then you can look at what might the future state look like. And to do that, you need to assess and prioritize the initiatives, or in this case, it might be intents, like order status, account update, those sorts of things. So you're kind of doing like little mini business cases. And to evaluate and assess each use case or intent, the way that I approach it is to assess three things: desirability, viability, and feasibility. So desirability, that is this something our customers want? Will they be happy talking to a conversational AI for this particular thing? And then on the flip side, as an organization, is this something we are okay with handing over responsibility to a conversational AI? There may be certain things that are more sensitive in nature where you might want the human involved. And so then the intent may be undesirable. So first we need to answer the desirability question. Next, you have the viability question. And this is really that cost benefit analysis. Is this use case or intent viable? And so the inputs to that are going to be expected volumes. Use cases with more volume have more potential to have higher benefit. Then there's the question of, well, how much of that use case could we realistically automate? Because if you start to break it down, account update as an example, there's update your phone number, update your address, all of these. Can we reliably automate all of those things? And so that will help you estimate the containment rate or the automation rate or the success measure you're looking at. And so then you can, to really dumb it down, you can multiply your volume by your automation rate, get the number of automated interactions, multiply that by cost to serve, and you have the benefit number. And then you compare that with, okay, well, what's it going to cost us to actually deliver this thing? And that's your cost benefit analysis. So that's the viability question. The third one is feasibility. And that's asking the question, do we have what it takes to deliver this thing? Do we have the right people to deliver? Do we have the right processes to pull this off? And do we have the right technology and data available? Things like customer account data or APIs to automate the thing. Do we have all of that available to us to build it? And that answers the feasibility question. So combining desirability, viability, and feasibility, you can then do a more apples to apples comparison of each of your initiatives. And that allows you to prioritize them. And then you input that into a business case, and it should be, okay, we'll do this one first from January to March, and we'll do the second priority one from April to May. And then what you're starting to build is not only a business case, but a roadmap. And so that's why I view the business case really as like the program nucleus. This may be a story that will resonate with a lot of people. I'm not sure I have enough fingers for the amount of times that I've been in a program where dived into the intent or use case with the highest volume. Okay, that's going to give us the biggest benefit. And teams are working on, designing and building it. And you get far enough along that you've invested so much time and you go, okay, can we actually automate this thing? Do we have the APIs available to us? Do they return the expected payload and the information that we need to actually solve this problem for the customer? And the amount of times the answer to that question has been no, and we need to spend 6 months building an API, maybe has taken years off my life. Because you've put in all that time and effort that is kind of wasted, because you have to either put it on the back burner, or you have to then water down the experience. And so you actually end up changing your design. You compromise, you reduce the customer experience, you hand over more often than you'd like. And so then you end up spending more time delivering less, all because you didn't ask a simple question when you're developing the business case. Feasibility. Can we actually do this thing? Do we have the APIs available? And sometimes it can even, you can be blindsided. You may even have the APIs, but there's been instances where organizations underestimated the impact that additional volume going through those APIs would have on the infrastructure. So they had the APIs available, but the additional volume caused the APIs to fall over and fail. So better to ask these questions at the beginning than to ignore them, and ignore them in the kind of mentality of, oh, we need to move fast, we need to deliver quickly. Well, no, sometimes you actually need to slow down a little bit. And actually, Hans, one of my former managers long ago gave me some advice that's really stuck with me, and people who, I don't profess to be a great project manager, but I find myself doing project management a lot. He said, manage your dependencies. And that's something that stuck with me, is make sure your dependencies are there and available to you. So in this case, knowing what the APIs are is a big lesson that I've learned over the course of the journey. And it's something that has derailed a lot of programs, I think.
Yeah. As I'm listening to you, it's like it seems like for most organizations that all those things that you list that are part of these smart evaluations, somewhere in the organization, somebody has a handle on that information, but there's nobody bringing it all together to paint that picture of like, are we going to do this and what's the strategy behind it? So there are people like all the number, like in the call center, they know average handling time, they know cost to serve, they know all of that, and the engineers know like the payload and how much they can handle, or the infrastructure guy, but it never comes together. And it kind of seems like there's the cost of not doing this and being wrong is so much higher than spending some time doing this. And
Absolutely
even
right.
not to even pitch ourselves in that way, but it does seem like having someone come in that actually only this is what they do and this is the task to figure out all these things is a very smart move, because otherwise if you're even figuring this out from scratch, like you're going to get stuck somewhere in an organization to keep the overview of everything that goes into this as well. So we're using the business case, we're building it, we get a go or we get a no-go. How do we also use this business case then throughout the entire life cycle of the program? And I'm going to ask you that to stay a little short in the answer here and sort of go through it, because we have a bunch of other questions that from the chat that I'd like to answer as well. And we don't, I can go over time a little bit,
Yeah.
but we don't want to go too long.
Well, I think I can keep this one quite brief, because we have been discussing elements of this in previous questions. I've seen, many times where a business case is created at the investment or planning stage, and then it's archived and ignored. And so we've talked about the importance of, okay, taking that and creating a more detailed one in the project planning stage. Those were the two scenarios we talked about. But a business case has far more utility throughout the entire program lifecycle. A conversational AI solution is not a one deploy and done kind of thing. You'll deploy an amount of capability on day one, and then you'll continue to deploy capability, but you'll also be, and you should be, monitoring what's happening in production, because that's when you get access to the real data. You should be monitoring, analyzing, and improving your conversational AI solution. And the business case can help you do that, because your business case will be, in the case of a detailed one, a month-by-month breakdown of the benefit that a particular intent will deliver. And so that will tie very closely to your reporting. You'll be able to look at your actuals from your reporting. What are your actual benefits for each intent, and compare that with the estimate, which is the business case. And then you can institute that feedback loop so that when you're estimating new initiatives or new intents, you have more data and information to inform. Okay, well, for one that we delivered, we kind of overestimated the benefit on that one, so we'll kind of won't be so aggressive in the estimation for the new one. And then you can also use that business case framework and the intent evaluation framework to evaluate and prioritize new things that emerge when you monitor and optimize your conversational AI solution. So that, you might have small things like we're going to add an utterance to our NLU to improve that intent, or we need to do a little bit more conversational repair here. But there may be larger items that are, okay, well, we need a whole new intent that's emerged. Customers are asking something we haven't seen before. And so, and then you can use your business case methodology to evaluate and prioritize those initiatives. So you're going after the best ones first. So business case never dies. It stays relevant and living throughout an entire program lifecycle, I think, Hans.
I want that on a t-shirt. Business case never dies, everybody. No, but I think what I'm learning listening to you is like there's a lot of these people are looking at all the different components of this entire business case, but you got the technicals team looking at the functionality of the bot, you got the business leader only looking at the top level of that business case, you got the call center that's just doing its thing and just hoping for someone to automate a bit of it. But actually this brings it all together and sort of it becomes guidance throughout the entire project once you figure this out. So that is really cool. I'm going to look real quick here at the Q&A. There's a bunch of stuff here. I've been building a RAG bot over the past year. Can you address the benefits and challenges using a RAG model? So is there anything you want to say there? Or and there's a follow-up question here as well, so let me see if that is tied in there. I guess this from the same person. The second part is like, how do you factor in legislation almost? So I would say, Gen AI government policies. I guess if you look at bear and bull case, there might be scenarios where you think you're going to have great value from a specific technology, but then legislation all of a sudden restricts the use of that technology, which should be somewhere in a financial model. In case that happens, how does that impact the business case? Or that would be my take on it, but what's your thoughts?
I think on the first question, retrieval, augmented generation of RAG bot, I think it was, what are the benefits and challenges? So maybe some context for everyone on the call. Retrieval augmented generation is where you perhaps use a large language model, not your traditional chatbot type of technology, which is natural language understanding. Then that triggers rules-based dialogue. That's kind of the traditional, chatbot solution that many of us have been working on. A RAG solution typically uses a large language model to generate answers. So the answers are not pre-authored, but they are rooted in a knowledge base. So you would ingest a bunch of documents or information relevant to your domain, pertinent to your domain, and the bot would retrieve answers and generate them from that knowledge source. So I think the benefits with that are you don't have to spend as much time to train the natural language understanding model, because large language models are can do like, one shot intent classification as an example. And you wouldn't have to spend as much time to author answers. So basically, you ask a question and you get an answer that's hopefully based on truth in your documents. But there are challenges with that. For instance, if you were to expose that to your customers, you don't have control over what's being generated. You don't know every time what the RAG, retrieval augmented bot will say to your customers, and that can be a risk. That can expose your company, depending on the industry, to all kinds of risks. So you need to be aware of that. I think there's going to be a lot of work over the next couple of years, and it's already happening, to establish guardrails around that so that you can have more control over what is said or isn't said, but gain those benefits from the large language model to generate the answers so that you don't have to write them. So that's a big challenge, is you don't know all the time what's going to be said, which is...
I guess the question is like, what does it cost? How much is a PR crisis worth? Like if I'm a medical company and my chatbot says like there's one message that is wrong and it's terrible and they shouldn't have said it, and maybe somebody did a wrong action and died or got in an accident because they took the wrong medication. Like all of a sudden your whole business, that risk doesn't have to be very big. But if the impact of it is so massive, like it changes the entire business case.
100%. And actually, we didn't really touch on that, but inputs to a business case should be, we spoke about assumptions, but there are also risks, issues, and we touched on dependencies. So, those are things that should be informing your business case. And in this case, the risk and exposure for these kinds of things could be very, very high. The incidence rate might be low, but if it does happen, it could be very bad.
Yeah. So there's another question here from Lily, and I think you talked about this a little bit, but you're joining a program. They just started. There's no business case. You got to kind of reverse engineer what's happening there. Is it and please say short answer. Is it just like looking at the situation, kind of going through the methodology as you would anyways, or do you do you jump on the running train, or do you actually just pretend the train's not there yet and just do all the calculations then?
I think my advice would be to advocate for investing in creating a business case. Because if you're just going to try and maybe do it on your own and affect the course of the program, you may not be as effective. So, stress the importance of doing it, the benefits that it can bring, and ask the question, can we do this? I think we should do this. Let's invest in it. And if you get summarily rejected, at least you tried. But it's better to do it properly than to maybe half-ass it and not have the buy-in, because you really need organizational buy-in for the business case. If it's done in isolation and no one looks or cares about it, then it's not worth doing.
Yeah. Here's another one, interesting. How's the view on the organization, people that needs to be in place to manage it, but how do you visualize sort of that in a business case? So it's like, I guess based on what you're ultimately building, how that needs to be managed, what kind of people need to be there, what kind of skill set they need, so that you might have to invest in training programs for these people and certification from organizations like CDI. So it's not just like, oh no, we need 5 people. No, how do we get those 5 people enabled to actually do this, etc., etc. So
yeah, you probably
I just want an answer. I don't know, maybe I said the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think we're starting to get I think a lot of these things are project management type questions as well. So you need to understand what it takes to deliver things. What are all the tasks you need to do? And then you need to look at, well, who's going to do it? What's the RACI look like? Who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed for delivering a particular task? And if you can't answer those questions about who, what role is going to do that thing, then you probably don't have the team to do it. And so then you may need to bring in someone from another team or hire someone to fill that gap. So I think you need to be clear on who's doing what. And if you don't know who's doing what, then you probably have, a gap there.
Yeah. So what I'm and I don't see any other questions. I think we actually did it within the hour. I'm really proud of us. But what I'm noticing, there's a lot of people that definitely what resonates and what they recognize is that, oh, a lot of times we just start and we don't think about these things. So people recognize that. But I think what I hope that a lot of people get from this session is that actually what you think is a business case, there's a whole nother level of things that you need to consider that are not as obvious. But to really drive a good program and to be able to manage that at scale, there's a lot of things that go into this, and putting in the extra effort up front is going to make everybody happy down the line. So advocate for it. And a lot of people are of course they are asking for templates. And like I said, we're obviously not going to give away the full detailed templates here, but maybe there's like a little bit of an outline of some of the things that we've discussed and that we've touched on that are part of this webinar. We can definitely structure that and give you some of those things to consider as you're having these conversations internally. Is there any famous last words from Luke himself that you want to share? Well, business case never dies, man.
Well, yeah, nothing specific. I just want to thank everyone for joining. We still have 75 people on the call. That's amazing, and we're at time. So thank you for joining and listening to me talk about business cases. Doesn't sound exciting, but hopefully you've learned something and you can appreciate the importance of a business case, and you can take that back to your organization or your program and affect change. I think all of us want to deliver the best conversational AI solutions possible, and this is part of that. So thank you for attending. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, thank you everybody for being here. Indeed, and for me, it was also wonderful because, like, I think a lot of people might not even know. Like, a lot of people know CDI as education certification, but there's a whole consulting branch that So what I said, based out of Austin, Texas, and Amsterdam, that works with enterprises around the world around these more complex issues of how do you build a capability, how do you build a program, what's the business case, what do the teams look like, how do I structure that, governance, compliance, all of those things around conversational AI. So it's great to sort of bring that here and talk about that a little bit and creating visibility for that. Also, I know we had polls set up, but first the chat didn't work, and I think we never really got to the polls. But maybe we can send it after in a survey, because there was a bunch of things that I think we've all touched on and that were part of the discussion. But yeah, there are a few interesting things that we had in the poll. So apologies for that. Oh, now all of a sudden it's popping up now. All right, so if somebody woke up, sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, you can still go through it, I guess. Yes, thank you all for being here. Thank you for being part of this wonderful community. If you have not signed up for CDI accounts, please do. Also, have a look at our wonderful event in Barcelona. Luke is going to be there. It's going to be there in person. And you can, we're going to have one long session, 4 hours long, from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. to talk about business cases. Where people, you get a drink, you sit down at the hotel bar, and then we talk about business cases. We pull up the spreadsheets, we do it on the big screen, and we go over it. But yeah, please join us there. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have deep breathing sessions. We're going to have ice baths. We're going to have DJs. We're going to have lots of good food, networking opportunities. But like I said, we're particularly focused on, as an enterprise, how do I really do this well? How do I talk to people at scale in a human-centered way? And yes, we do need a Hans Dad's joke to end this session. God, that one's bad. So my girlfriend said, what starts with an F and ends with a K. I said, no, it doesn't. It's really bad. Sorry. Sorry. And it was recorded. Now I'm on record saying a dumb joke, but I think there's plenty of video footage of me doing that. Do I at least get one laugh? No, nobody cared.
A chuckle from me, Hans, a
You got
chuckle.
a little chuckle? You got a little chuckle? Okay, now I'll take a chuckle. Let's see. Anyone else? No, thank you everybody for being here and joining us. A few people have also asked. Oh, I'm getting a few laughs now. Okay, maybe it took a while. Yes, this is recorded. This will be posted. We'll put it on YouTube. We'll put it on CDI platform. So that's going to be good fun as well. We will also send you an email afterwards, of course, thanking you for being here today, but also with a link to that video so you can watch it again and share it with your friends. Also, be aware of we're running the free chatbot review program as well. So if you're at an enterprise, you've got something deployed, you're not always sure if you're doing the right thing, if your bot's speaking the way that you would want it to speak. We can come in and do a quick audit on that, and we'll give you a very nice review where we look at, are you applying the right design fundamentals, and are you doing the right tone of voice, and is it consistent, and how are you using buttons, and how does it fit in with the rest of the website? And it's free of charge. We just have a quick look at it and send you a nice report. So be aware of that as well. I think that will be mentioned in that email as well that you're getting. So again, thank you everybody. Let's say somebody's asking something here. In terms of yes, you can, Holly, you can talk to Ben about that. Yeah. So I don't know if this is a question to everyone or just to us. I guess that's only to us. Never mind. I didn't say anyone. That was behind the scene question that we got here. So thank you all. We will close now and have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you may be. Well, we have people from Melbourne, we've got people from North America and people from Europe. So we're covering the globe again. So that's a lot of fun. Thank you all for being here today. And again, thank you, Luke, for doing this and making the time and in your busy schedule. So thanks for that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Arrivederci.